Well, talking about silly, let's make it a little less politics. Our last one to end with is SAP CEO Christian Klein made a prediction. Which, by the way, I don't want to come off being too harsh because it's not that I entirely disagree with him, but he basically says that he expects manual data entry to disappear from SAP by 2027. Now, clearly, I think that's one of those things because people complain about the Byzantine maze of SAP screens and trying to enter data, and it's this huge process. And of course, we've been talking all show about agentic AI, and part of that promise is that it's doing all of these tasks for you. So I get why he would say it. The reason I find it a little silly is because at least in the next 2 years, by the time frame he's talking about 2027, I don't think the technology is going to be anywhere near advanced enough that we are eliminating interfaces. And the biggest reason is just that human speech, which is ostensibly how the only way that happens, right? If I'm just talking to my computer, is actually very inefficient in a lot of ways. And we'll show just how inefficient here with a closing video, I guess, in a second. But I mean, that was sort of, I mean, so before we get to the funny part, I guess, what was your take on this announcement? Did you take any of it seriously, or did you read it?
Yeah, first of all, noticing that this was based on an SAP Korea event and that it was reported by a Korean reporter. Just want to say, 이지연 보는 SAP는 서른 소식이 있습니다. Just saying that Lee Ji-Hyun reported on this, so thanks to her. But also a little more seriously, I think SAP has always been challenged by talking about how it's going to make things more simple. And they even talked about run simple for a while before they realized nobody ever hires SAP to run simple. Everybody runs SAP. Everybody hires SAP because they have really complicated, complex, customized work environments that only SAP can handle. And that's what SAP actually does a great job of. And so I think this is going to be a challenge for them. I mean, we're talking about SAP where they can't even get rid of their support for extremely old legacy versions of SAP because too many customers want to keep their R3. They want to keep their on-prem capabilities. They don't want to move to S/4HANA, which is over a decade old at this point. So that's the reality of being an SAP customer and trying to support the largest businesses in the world.
Yeah, and I do think that is part of it, right? Is that we've all been around long enough to know that nothing happens that quickly, particularly if the letters SAP are involved. And in fairness, though, I mean, in fairness, he was talking specifically in the context of their announcement or the release of Business Data Cloud, and apparently getting wild levels of interest from their customers around it. And the premise here is that business data coming through these different form factors, i.e. machine generated data or data coming from other systems, it would then populate it. The challenge is that's not anywhere near enough to eliminate the need for manual updating unless you somehow eliminate that entire interface and have it with some other form. And that's sort of where I was going to. So the funny video to end with is that to prove my point that language or speech-based data entry is a very inefficient way of functioning. There's a video that went around about a month ago about two AI agents. It was a demo, in full disclosure, it was a demo, but basically it was an AI agent doing scheduling, talking to an AI agent that was running from like a hotel service. And once they realized they were both the agents, they dropped into something called, what is it called? Gibberlink, I think, or something like that. Yeah. And it's basically a specific sort of for these sort of voice communications that AI agents can use to communicate because talking is too slow. So why would we do that? Mm-hmm. And so I just, it was a sort of funny video. So maybe we can tack it on or we'll have the link anyway. But
yes,
it was just,
we'll leave the link.
I look at all of this.
Yeah. And I think it's a fascinating idea of pushing the API into audio form and avoiding code, which I think will actually be something that happens more often in the agentic world. Agentic AI is not limited to using an API. It can obviously type or talk or create pictures or encode information in all sorts of other ways that are not necessarily human in nature. So for instance, we create these quick codes mobile on the mobile app basis, and there's no reason that computers can't build these gigantic, I'll call it 1024 by 1024 quick codes to each other to communicate visually. Like there's all sorts of things they can do that we are never going to be able to understand at a fluent level.
Well, what makes this funny to me, like I said, was pointing out that human speech is a very inefficient way of communicating in many ways. And so if we're going to eliminate screens, there's going to have to be another way of doing that. But it was also funny because this sent shivers through the internet with people looking at this like, oh, the machines are talking to themselves in language we don't understand. The part that got missed in that is they didn't make it up. It was actually, we should actually cover it at some point, because Timberlink was designed specifically for this this idea when two agents are talking and they're talking in a non-API type base, to your point, where they're now using this sort of audio signaling as a way to rapidly communicate. And what is really interesting about that is it effectively allows you to create an API without the technical layer, right? If the systems know how to interact with humans, then the systems can interact as humans using this Timberlink as a universal translator, sort of, right? And it's kind of an interesting concept that could change, because it is one of the challenges, particularly when we're talking about like consumer-based apps, which is what the demo is showing, where having an API to every known system out there is not practical. This gives you another alternative. But if you saw the movie Her, it sort of, it had echoes of that, and you're like, ah.
Yeah, but I also feel like, being old enough, I also heard it felt like seeing my 14.4K modem again, and you're hearing that bing bong, bing bong, when it does the handshake to connect you to your service. And it's like, oh yeah, great, we're going back to that, except way, way faster now.
Exactly. So